All right, now I want to talk about materials. Okay, so materials are what makes the object essentially look real. Okay, so you can see that I've got this shoe here, and if I press 5, I can see shaded mode. If I press 6, I can see the textures, in other words, the color of it, right? But if I press 7 on the keyboard, I can start to see lighting. And I feel like if we want to talk about materials, really we can think about how the object responds to lighting. Okay, so we could say that this is black. However, it's not, it's not like a chalky black. It's more like a hard black plastic. Okay, where maybe we have something like this is leather on the inside. So you can see that it doesn't like reflect lighting the same as it does out here. If we get a look at this, with materials, I feel like it's important to talk about rendering as well. And in 3D, in terms of rendering, what that means is that we call this the viewport. And if I click on this, so I clicked on this little icon here and then this gate mask. Now I can see that anything inside of this gray box is what would render. Okay. Now if I want to render something, I would have to go up here to Arnold, and then I'd have to open up my Arnold render view, which is this. And now if I hit play, you can see that the computer calculates all of the shadows and all the lighting and all that complex stuff. And if I rotate this, you can see that the viewport might not be exactly the same as what I'm seeing here. I mean, it's pretty close, but I feel like I have to just trust the render view to see if my materials are accurate, okay, or what they look like. So what is this broken down? Well, if I go into my my channel box, which we're used to, okay, so something like, let me see, where's my channel box? Or I'm sorry, my attribute editor. And if I click on the shoe, and if I right click and go to material attributes, this is the material of the shoe. And when I say material, I'm saying that it's more than just the color information. So the color information is part of the material. As I can see here, I have a color file mapped onto color. But I also have stuff like roughness. I also have things like bump map, okay? And those files collectively make the look of the shoe. Another way that we can see this is what's called the Hypershade. And if I click on this icon up here, this blue ball at the top, if I click on that, it'll bring up the Hypershade. And the Hypershade is basically kind of showing us all of our materials in our scene. Okay, so in this one, I have a floor material. I have one material for one shoe, one for the other shoe, for the zipper, and for the background. And then I've got, these are basically my default materials that I'm not going to delete, I'm not going to touch, but these are the ones that are kind of actively in the scene. And then I also have the left heel material, which is for this shoe, kind of broken down here. So once again, if I go here, and if I look at this, and if I also look at this, what we're looking at is exactly the same thing, okay? If we picture this as the material, I'm also going to say that this represents the material. And you can see that we have something plugged into the color. Okay, just like here, you can see that something's plugged into color. But here I can see that something's plugged into color kind of in a more visual way. I can also see that something's plugged into specular roughness. So here's specular roughness. I can see that this file is plugged into specular roughness. Then I can see down here that something's plugged into bump mapping. And I can see that this file is plugged into the bump mapping. So it's really, I think that this way is kind of easier to see that there's 3 files plugged into this material. Or if I'm viewing it like this, I'm like, okay, there's a file there, a file there. But then I would have to kind of like dig through all of these other ones to see if there's something else plugged in. Okay, let's say if I was receiving this from somebody else. So it might be kind of annoying to see what's there. I think this is a great way to keep it organized and to really kind of a clean way of working. But this is a lot more intuitive, and we're really seeing that. Now what I could do is I could break a connection. I could click on this, and if I took off, let's say, color, and hit delete, you can see that I lose the color, but the specularity is still there. Why? Because the roughness specularity is still connected. So watch, if I disconnected that, I'll just kind of make this a little bit smaller. So once again, you can see that the leather part is not shiny and this part is shiny. But if I broke this, I can see that now it's all kind of even. Okay, it's kind of, maybe it all looks kind of the same plastic or whatever. But now if I connect this, now that was painted such that only the black parts or the outside parts are going to be shiny and the others are not. And same with the color, that was set up specifically. Whoop, let me see. So it's kind of, there we go. And you can see that when the connection is made, it kind of all comes together. So once again, a very visual representation of how to see this stuff. And you can see that if I go to a different material, let's say this one, I would have to click on this middle button, this input-output connections, and now I can see the ones that are connected for this one. If I go to the floor material, I can see that the floor material is very simple. Let's see the zipper material. The zipper material is also very simple. I feel like it's these, the actual shoes themselves that have these additional kind of maps to make it look like it's, once again, we have complexity in the shoe. The more kind of range of materials that you have in something, the more complex this shading network gets. Okay, so that's kind of an overview of these things, and in the next lessons, I will kind of break it down and kind of make more sense of this.